Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we are going to recap Who's Number 118 with a couple of title fights on it, including Kaynan Duarte versus Nicholas Meregali. We are also going to talk about the AIGA Championship coming up, some of the announcements and the folks announced for that card. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, to my co-host,
Josh.
How you doing, Josh?
Great.
We're going to call you Nostradamus now. Back 2 weeks in a row. This is episode 300. We don't have anything. Essentially, we don't have anything special planned for this because we have a giant recap to do for Who's Number One. A lot of great matches, a lot of subs. So we may do something, as a not retrospective. We may do a supplemental episode, but we're not quite sure yet. We got some great feedback.
The same hosts from episode 1 are now on episode 300.
Oh yeah, look at that. That's crazy. We have video now too. Lots changed in the last 6 years.
17 millennia.
It's great to still be here. Great to still be doing the show. We'll probably talk a little bit on the outro, but we were going to have something fun, but we got busy with doing a recap for Who's Number One. Before we get into that, let's do a little bit of news. We have the full lineup for BJJ Stars 11. We have the women's heavyweight GP announced. We have Gabriela Pisana, Tayana Porfirio. We have Melissa Stricker-Couto. We have Velma Moreno. We have Yara Soares. We have Tamira Silva. We have Karina Santi. And we have Mirka de Lima. That is a...
Michaela.
What'd I say?
Mirka.
Michaela de Lima. Yeah, you're going to do the names for AIGA because you killed those on the pre-show. So that should be a phenomenal heavyweight GP. I'm curious to see if we're actually going to get the bracketing for that first because Porfirio has beat most of these ladies, but it is really interesting to have... Pisana has beat most of these ladies. I would be really interested to see Porfirio and Pisana on opposite sides of the bracket. But
when was the last time we saw her compete?
We haven't covered Porfirio in a bit, but she's been competing more recently, just on opens and stuff.
She got the
suspension,
the steroid ban, right?
She did, and then she's back, but she's back now, and she's been back for I think a year or more now, at least. So she's back.
Go to the super fights.
Super fights. This is a dope matchup. We have Diogo Reis. God damn it, I looked at it. And only the ADCC under 66 kilogram champion versus Sam Nagai. We were going to talk about Sam Nagai's match versus Richard Nogueira, but the video is not up on Fight to Win on Fight TV. So Sam Nagai took that match, but we're not actually getting a chance to recap it on the show because the video's not up right now. So Diego versus Sam should be a phenomenal match. We have Jansen Gomez, current world champion, versus Gustavo Batista. We have Andy Murasaki versus Anderson Ferreira. I've been watching a lot of Anderson's matches on the AJP tour. Dude looks super exciting still. We covered him on the last BJJ Stars, and he really impressed us, and it was a lot of fun to watch him. So his match versus Murasaki should be fun. We have Mateus Spirandelli versus Azaki Bahens in a battle of the guillotines, and we have Yana Boeto versus Victor Henario. We also have Peter Frank versus Caio Almeida. So that should be...
Yatan Bueno.
What'd I say?
I don't know, but it wasn't right.
I messed up the names again. As 6 years in the show running, I've continued to butcher folks' names, even the ADCC under 66 kilogram champion. So that's the lineup for BJJ Stars. That's happening in just under a month on September 9th. So should be a really, really fun card. I think it's on Flow. Yeah, it is on Flow for the U.S. And BJJ Stars TV for the event in Brazil. So always fun, super awesome to have them showcasing the women's heavyweight, so a class that doesn't get as many GPs as kind of I would like to see, and they have some phenomenal names for it. They have the top women at the weight class, so very excited for that. We also have the 8-man tournament announcement for 10K for EUG, the, Evolve Your, I always want to say Elevate Your Game. Evolve Your Game. They have announced that it's the
same day as...
It is. It's brown, black, and purple belts. I thought we had names for this.
Elder Cruz.
Varela's on here. Jacob Couch. Jackson Nagai.
Sebastian Rodriguez.
Yeah. So it'll be fun. We'll probably have a bracket there sooner. They may actually... EUG does brackets out of a hat the day before or the day of, so we will not have brackets for this event literally until the broadcast or the day before the broadcast at weigh-ins. So that should be fun. Again, I love 10K brackets. It's just enough money where you really get some cream of the crop guys coming out, and they put on some fun events. They have some really interesting rules, and they've continued to modify their rules for each event. These guys were one of the first ones recently to use that last to score criteria for an IBJJF style tournament. I think it's really, really good. I don't know if they still have that, but it really pushes the action. And the promoter for the organization gave an interview, and they kind of broke down the rules and talked about why that was such a good rule change to have, and I think it's great. So that should be a lot of fun. I don't know if they are on Flow anymore, but yeah, they are on Flow still. So
Same day as
BJJ Stars, so it's going to be it'll be a big recap show.
Well, the one is, it depends on where it is because
Time zones,
and when they're actually doing it. Is it during the day? Is it at night?
right?
Etc. Et
BJJ Stars is usually an evening event, and EUG is usually kind of mid-afternoonish, if I recall correctly. Let me just punch you in the shoulder, Josh.
Set malfunction.
And move the podcast banner.
Anyway,
so that should be fun. Let's move in. Any other news we got? Anything else fun going on?
no.
I feel like something fun happened.
I mean, we played Dungeons and Dragons yesterday.
We did. That was essentially episode 300 for the podcast. We got most of the hosts together for the show. Played some D&D like the nerds we are. Josh DM'd. It was great. May talk about that in the outro, but let's move into the recap of Who's Number 1, 18, headlined by Nicholas Meregali and Kaynan Duarte. Josh.
19.
No,
There's a big number
that's
right
why.
there.
Okay, I kept typing in 18, and it kept bringing up Pedro Mourinho versus Nicholas Meregali, and I was so confused. That makes sense. I had the wrong number. So Who's Number? That makes way more sense now because I was like, why does it keep bringing up this one?
Can't wait till you put it in the description as Who's Number
I
118.
think I might have done that last week, so I might have to go retroactively edit the number because I realized that that's probably the issue. So I probably screwed up the SEO for the podcast last week. That explains a lot. Let's start with the main event, Josh. You called it. Not exactly the sub that you called, but you said that Kaynan was going... Sorry, you said that Nicholas Meregali was going to sub Kaynan Duarte.
I said he was going to take him down.
They took each other
And he
down.
was going to... I said he was going to take him down.
You did.
He was going to take his back, and he was going to choke him. Now, if we get into semantics, I think I said he was going to rear naked choke him. So on that part, I was incorrect. But he took him down, took his back, and then transitioned to the top and came into that leg weave smashing position with the body lock, passed around, and then arm triangled him. And I was here for most of the matches, but then I left and went home and watched the rest at home. And as soon as that was starting to happen, I immediately posted in the chat, I told you this exactly would happen. And Maine was shooketh.
I wasn't upset. I was just... You have done this a couple of times over the course of the show where you'll pick I can't call Meregali an underdog.
Everybody picked Kaynan, okay?
So, okay.
Everybody
not
picked
everyone.
Kaynan.
I think there was
Okay,
most of the polls I saw.
According to the poll that you put up, 11% of the people agreed with me, which is fine. Craig Jones literally the day after we recorded that podcast released something on YouTube breaking down all of the matches, and he was like, Kaynan should win.
And that was my gut pick going in. Was Kaynan was going to win. I was wrong. Was very wrong. I was impressed at how tight of a squeeze Meregali has because Kaynan taps once the choke's in. Kaynan doesn't. It's not in that thing for 5 seconds. It's
Dog was
quick.
tired.
Yeah, I was actually a little surprised how. We know Kaynan gets tired. We know that it will kind of affect his pace later in matches.
Do you know what else affects your pace?
Nicholas Meregali is giant and strong. What else affects your pace?
No, because he was also tired too.
Yeah.
They should both work on their cardio.
Maybe.
Steroids.
There's that. It can. Is Kaynan off the ban yet? Is he back on IBJJF?
Oh, he's been back.
He's back
for a
last
while.
year, right? Yeah, okay.
He's been back for a while now. But that camp is so juicy.
They're a little juicy.
And you can't. No, it's like dog.
Couple guys have
It's
popped.
Juicy.
Yeah, I don't
care. I'm just
we don't
saying.
care. We're watching sports entertainment. We're not. It's not my place to pass judgment on what professional athletes do for my entertainment for their bodies.
I think they were both
don't care.
juicy. It didn't really matter.
No.
One one guy beat the other guy.
Yeah. So a couple of questions. I have a couple of like technical things I want to talk about, but where we've already kind of broken down the finish. So the Meregali gave a weird post-fight interview. He was like, I'm the second best guy, I'm the first best guy, I'm maybe the third best guy. You know, it kind of seemed like in the interview he wanted to take on Gordon, but he didn't want to say, at least that's watching it live. I haven't rewatched the post-fight, and I meant to do that, but I've forgotten until just now. It kind of seemed like he was hinting at being interested in the Gordon match, which I think I'm probably reading that wrong, because he's in Gordon's camp. They train together. Like, Gordon has been the guy working with him to bring him into being one of the best no-gi guys in the world.
Everybody has their day. Don't get me wrong. If we do 10 no-gi matches between those two, honestly, I'd probably lean towards Duarte. Over a span of 10 no-gi matches.
Are you saying Duarte versus Gordon?
No, Duarte versus Meregali.
Okay, I was talking. Okay, you threw me off. Got it. I'm following.
Jumping back, then going into it.
Okay.
So it's a toss-up, and it's no-gi. Like, anything can happen on any given day. He beat him that time. I don't think he stands a chance, an Ice Cube's chance in hell, against Gordon. Meregali doesn't. I just don't think he's got the chops, and you kind of saw it with this matchup. Like, too much energy expenditure. That both guys' takedowns were not great. The fact that Kaynan let his leg get picked up 55 times,
and even Meregali in the beginning of the match was sort of, there was almost a push out. He lifted his leg up. Like he defended it by giving up his leg, which again Duarte took. They traded single legs in a weird kind of way throughout this match that I was a bit surprised, and it seemed like the commentary picked up on it that Meregali was trying to sort of counter with judo.
Sort of, but the thing was he was baiting him. Like, he kept taking that inside tie position where you lock up first and Kaynan for some reason was over tying on that without any other grips. He was just like reaching, and near the end of the finish, Meregali was like, I'm going to show you how I'm going to take you down, because he tied up with him, and Kaynan reached over top, and he tried to go double unders immediately, and he backed away, and then he did the same exact thing 10 seconds later.
Not even 10 seconds later, like immediately after.
Kaynan reached again, and he was like, cool, I'm going to just go behind you now. And he went behind him and took his back. And
kind of dragged him down. That was the final finishing sequence that led to them getting to the ground from the feet, was Meregali doing that sequence, Kaynan giving them response, Meregali doing the exact same sequence, and then just getting the body lock as a result of Kaynan overtying, ducking under him, and just immediately dragging him back. Duarte did a great job.
He tried to knee bar off of it, which is like
which is exactly what we saw
thing. Like, he knee bars.
He does knee bar.
He knee bars quite a bit, but like it wasn't. It looked like a half-assed roll forward to try to finish it, and I can't say for sure, but from looking at the screen and going, okay, what's going on? It looked like, one, it was a desperate thing to do, and two, he wasn't really putting his all into try to extending it and isolating the leg.
Yeah, it was a weird sort of technical and tactical hiccup in Duarte's game that Meregali capitalized on greatly. Gets to the top, smashes through the guard. Really great passing.
Grabbed it again, almost extended it, but that's what got Meregali to get the body lock to then go around, pass, go to mount,
finish from mount.
Finish.
It is interesting. There was two other leg lock sequences in this match. One is really early at the beginning. Duarte takes Meregali down.
Yeah.
And then Duarte sits back like he's going to do that sit through for the outside heel hook, but he actually does it with a straight ankle grip.
Yeah,
and then Meregali
came up
immediately goes, oh, cool, stands up. Immediately Duarte goes into single leg X, continues to have the straight ankle lock grip, and it's an interesting thing that we see Duarte do. He favors the straight ankle lock grip, even in no-gi, for the control, but we will see him do it, but very rarely will ever switch to the heel hook grip and either wrestle up off of it or do and shoot for a hard heel hook. Usually he grabs the ankle lock grip, he'll sweep, he'll overhead sweep a lot with that grip, but it is an interesting sort of meta change for Duarte that is a sequence that we almost never see anyone drop into going for the straight ankle. It was weird to see him do that and not elect to kind of drop his body into Meregali's hip and then turn the angle and force Meregali to roll. When we saw Meregali just sort of go, oh, you're only going to ankle lock me, I'm just going to immediately stand up. Duarte goes to single leg, sort of looks for the knee bar, looks for the overhead sweep, but Meregali does a great job smashing him back down into the kind of like long range butterfly guard, and then they eventually go back up. But it was just, it's an interesting wrinkle of Kaynan's game that he'll use that grip. And I don't really have much more kind of technical analysis for that grip. It's just, it is not in the meta. Usually that is not a sequence I can recall anyone in the elite level like Kaynan ever sitting back to just the ankle lock grip. Unless you're in like a quintet and the heel hook is banned, but in Who's Number One, they're not banned. So it's just I still can't wrap my head around exactly why Kaynan favors that so much. If you're sitting back from a top position, if maybe he didn't want to pass Meregali or he went to get a quick sub.
Finish quickly when they weren't sweaty.
It was just interesting.
It was a bad choice.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I don't think it was a good choice to just fall back on that and just try to do something without having complete control.
I think we talked about it in the show last week. Like that's Kaynan's it's Kaynan and Meregali's both weakest area is the heel hook defense and the leg lock defense. Historically, we've seen Kaynan have problems with it. Meregali got through Craig Jones's leg lock attempts at ADCC, but he only has a couple of years of heel hook experience essentially. So if you're going to attack him and look for the sub in no-gi, it would make sense to do that. But he goes for the ankle lock grip as opposed to the heel hook grip, which Meregali is very familiar in gi with the ankle lock grip for that sit. It's just a weird tactical decision. Maybe he was looking for something else, but it was that just struck me as such an odd choice to make early in the match from a top player position when Meregali wasn't threatening anything else.
Yeah, I would have tried to stay on top. Maybe the gi matches were sitting in the back of his head because if you watch all their matches, and Flo put up a YouTube video of all 4 of their matches.
And
that
you should, because it's interesting.
Meregali won definitively the 2 matches that he had. Kaynan was gifted both of his matches.
Yeah.
Like, if you watch the first match that they had, it's like, huh. I mean, I understand that they gave it to Kaynan, but I don't think they should have. And then in Spider, I definitely don't think he should have won that. But
that was a weird. I remember you and I broke down that tournament when that happened in 2019. That was a weird tournament for that match. I remember that match being weird at that tournament.
It just, not a whole lot was going on, and they're like, "Oh, we're giving it to Kaynan." It's like, that's a lot of money that you're just kind of saying, "We'll give it to that guy."
Yeah.
But it was a good match, and now they're 3-2. They're probably going to run into each other a whole lot. Meregali talked about doing more gi matches, which is awesome.
He's amazing. I
think he should do the Worlds next year, but I guess he would have to off cycle for that so he doesn't get popped.
Yeah.
Or he should start off cycling now and get ready to do no-gi pans and Worlds.
Maybe
to keep himself busy. Take anybody that will take him on in the gi or in no gi. Honestly, he should, as long as it makes sense, he should take those matches.
Him and Penna have gone against each other, right? Recently, in the gi.
We'll bring him up.
That's too long. We'll talk. We'll figure it.
Too much.
It's like there's a lot of button clicks. His keyboard's very clicky. I didn't know, Josh. It's one of those things. If you know offhand. I'm just trying to think of
right now
other guys we want to see Meregali against.
I think Meregali's beaten him.
Yeah, I believe so.
I think he beat Pena and then lost to Buchecha in one of the Worlds in the absolutes.
Okay. So it was fun. It was interesting. It does kind of cement Meregali as...
He's one of the top guys in no-gi now, especially at heavyweight.
I want to see him versus Craig again. I think that match is interesting.
Okay, that's an interesting match.
Craig just got that's a news. Craig just got announced for a match against Luke Rockhold. I assume Polaris, because they've had both of those guys before, but I don't know what organization it's in. But it just got announced like an hour or two before we're recording the show on Monday.
That brings me negative excitement.
Yeah, it does. But
like,
hey,
I'm glad Craig is competing because
Craig's
we
getting that
haven't
bank.
we haven't seen a ton of him recently. I mean, he's going to be.
we just saw him versus Penna, didn't we?
But we haven't seen a lot of
Yeah,
him.
we saw him at Fight Pass Invitational, but he's been a bit sporadic. He's been coaching a lot of guys with Adesanya and Volkanovski. He's been back and forth to Australia. He's doing camps and
All over
seminars,
the place.
putting out hilarious videos.
He is on the quintet team, right?
Yeah, he's on the B Team Bulls.
Okay, so
team.
we'll see if he actually gets to even go when it comes to going on that. But, I like watching Craig compete, so great. But
It's MMA guy
and
versus
a lot of,
jiu-jitsu guy.
yes, but there have been a lot of stories about grappling-wise how good Luke Rockhold is.
I mean, he won Blue Belt Worlds at Nogi, Purple Belt Worlds at Nogi back in 2007 and 2008. Like, he's been a monster grappler for a very long time. Remember the Tim Boach match, the fight he had in UFC? Like, Luke Rockhold is a monster grappler. We've seen him on Polaris before. We've seen him going against, I think, Nicky Rod.
There were rumors that he hung in there with Buchecha in the gi.
Yeah, Luke Rockhold's a monster grappler.
But it's this match does not excite me.
Not really. I wish it did more, but we don't see Luke at a frequent enough kind of interval for me to be super excited.
Last time we saw him, he was getting punched in the face.
Yep.
By, was it Mike Perry?
Oh, a bare knuckle boxing. The
Was
bare
that
knuckle
the-
fight. I think that's what
think that was
it
it.
might have been him versus Luke. So, regardless, that match got announced. I would love to see the rematch between Craig and
Meregali. That would be
Meregali
a
in
good
Nogi, because I think that would
That'd
be
be
a neato matchup coming off of this. Let's move on. Do you want to go to the men's the men's lightweight fight or the women's flyweight?
Let's just go in order. We're going from the
All right.
top. Let's work our way down.
Ffion Davies defeated Jasmine Rocha via decision.
So here's my tinfoil hat theory. Ready?
Yep.
Ffion didn't submit her on purpose.
Expand.
After the smack talk that everybody saw, which was hilariously bad.
But I also love, like, credit to them, like, regardless of how you feel about, like, the talk back and forth, that made people excited for that matchup.
100%.
And I, like, credit to both of those ladies for, like, you are prize fighters. You make your money for getting eyes on your matchup. That got so many more eyes on that matchup than it would have prior.
So let's give more credit to Jasmine then, because she really started it.
Credit to
Because
Jasmine. Good for her.
She started talking that shit. Anybody that knows jiu-jitsu a little bit goes, you are really biting off more than you can chew by making these statements.
Versus Ffion, who is pound for pound, like, you're Nogi world champion, you're
got brought up-
ADCC champion, and you're world champion.
This got brought up in the chat after that happened, where she was, Ffion goes, I'm ADCC champion and world's champion in the same year. And Jasmine goes, yeah, you're not focused 100% on no-gi. And it's like, I'm 100% focused on no-gi. You're only 50%. And I was like, did you hear what she said? And Austin said it before I typed it out, which was, if you're saying she's only 50% in on no-gi and she won ADCC and she also won Worlds and you're 100% in and you didn't win trials, what does that tell you? That if she trains 100% for no-gi, she's going to mop the floor with you.
Yeah.
And she's still, like, it wasn't an utter was an utter defeat.
Yeah.
Like, Ffion worked her, but it was like, oh, what, are you going to knee cut me? And she was like, well, yeah, I am going to knee cut you. And she did. And then she just stayed on top of her.
And got her back for a little bit there.
Any position that she so felt. And just was, at one point she was trying to smother her. If anybody saw that, that was pretty funny. She was trying to arm triangle her. But watching it, I was like, she could have finished these a couple of times. I think she's doing this to prove a point that she is way better.
Were you still at the house when we were watching this? I think you watched this.
No.
Okay, you'd left as right
No,
between these matches.
left
before Dante's match.
I left as the Dante and Ethan match was about to start.
Yeah. Yep.
And I just had it playing on my phone driving home so I could like listen to it.
Safety, Josh.
I was listening to it. It's not
great.
that hard, I'm driving. But yeah, like when I got home and I watched that, and my daughter, who also came with me to your house to watch this, was watching it when we got back to the house. She was like, that one girl is beating up the other girl. And I said, that is 100% correct. I was like, there is no other way to state that. You are 100% correct. Jasmine had nothing.
Yeah, to her credit, like Jasmine,
She hung in there.
And Ffion said it in the post-fight and in a later interview. She's like, look, she's really tough. She was hard to put away. I think, and like you said, I think for two of those arm triangles on the top, and William Tackett actually, he does breakdowns of some matches. I watched a really quick breakdown he did on Instagram today, and he was talking about the Fion's head position for the arm and how it was pushing on like the upper end of the forearm, and how Jasmine can open up her shoulder to prevent the artery from being choked on the neck. Had Ffion dropped her head all the way down and kind of set off, like we saw Meregali versus Kaynan, she probably would have been able to finish that. So that's kind of why I think, I don't like your tinfoil hat fit theory, but I do. We've seen Ffion finish these chokes before. She knows how to drop down. She knows how to drop her weight off, but she was not looking to unmount Jasmine to finish, to fall off to the side for the finish. She was looking to continue to impose. She was clearly dominating and winning on top. So she went, well, I'm going to clearly win this match. I'm putting her in submission danger. If she happens to roll, I can take the back off this, but I don't need to sit off and force a scramble because Jasmine is dangerous.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm just going to continue to mount. If the finish is here, I'm going to look for it, but I'm not going to give up my positional advance, my positional dominance here to look for a finish when I'm already so clearly winning and in such a dominant spot that I feel comfortable in. Jasmine is very, very good, but as far as the women at flyweight, she's not astonishingly flexible in a way where she can like invert over and put goat hooks in to knock Ffion off. And so once Ffion got into top mount on her, you didn't see Jasmine able to like complete like women like Danielle Kelly or the women at straw weight and atom weight. Rockhold, you also like Isa Bastos completely fold in half, and it's really hard to mount the women at those weight classes because they are so flexible. Once you move up into flyweight and above, the flexibility comes down a little bit, and so Ffion could maintain mount without Jasmine like scorpioning over to push her over. And so Ffion went, okay, I can control this position on top. I don't feel the need to continue to advance or continue to like give up position looking for the sub, because I will make Jasmine tired. If she gives me the sub, I will take it, but I can take a very clear, clean decision here. And then in the post-fight, she talked about Jasmine being super tough, and I think a lot of lesser grapplers would have absolutely folded there, and we've seen Ffion crush through divisions in first and second rounds versus women that are not on the level of Jasmine Rocha. But this may have been one of the most one-sided matches in Who's Number One title fight history, because Ffion is just so very good and can control the match to that degree.
I also don't think she tried to finish the rear naked choke all the way either. There were a few times where she was pretty much over the chin, and I was like, you could just lock that up and start squeezing, and that'll be that.
Yeah, that was interesting. She didn't have the hooks all the way in, but
but I mean, we've seen many a matches finish without hooks in.
Yeah.
You can be reaching over top and crushing.
I mean, Dante and Ethan. Dante didn't have hooks in fully for that one.
No, and he also didn't have like a rear naked choke in, but we'll get to that in just a second.
So who do you want? So do you have anything more technical? Like, Ffion looks amazing. She knee cut. She passed. She mounted. She got to the back.
Who did she lose to? Clay, right?
Elizabeth Clay via toe hold at Polaris in the GP.
There you go. You can set that one up as like another match and see the difference. Can
Clay make 125 though? Is the question. That's my look. But I think Ffion also talked about wanting to go up to 35 and take that belt too. I think Clay can make 35. So that would be a super neat matchup. That's a matchup I would love to see for that title in Nogi, especially because Clay has a recent win over Ffion. Who do you want to give Jasmine? That's my question of like getting back on the train. Who do you give her in that weight class? People were talking about, get over Cravar. Like, no. Like, give Cravar more time to develop.
Cravar is 45.
Yeah, but that's all. There's a bunch of reasons that matchup doesn't make sense. But that I saw that online. Like, well, let's see your Cravar. Like, no. Let's not do that. That doesn't match. Makes no sense.
Cravar is being built up properly. She's got
Yeah.
the hype train behind her.
Yes.
But, like, if you look at it, you're like, okay, well, who is she beating? And it's like,
Yeah, no one of super high level at this point. I think
when
that
it
would be
comes
too
to
much
when
too
it comes
soon.
to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure she's beaten MMA fighters that are decent at grappling and stuff like that.
She's just starting to come into her own versus some very good female black belts, but
She
putting
needs-
into like the
she
world
needs
ranks
more
versus
time.
Rocha, yeah, you need more time. I think it is pointless to
Couple
give her
more-
those matches now.
Couple more fights, but again, also, she's 45.
Yeah,
And
145.
she's also, yes, 145, not age 45.
Yeah.
She's 16. Like,
Yeah.
she might get bigger. Like,
Yeah, she might end at 55
height-wise,
comfortably.
weight-wise, muscular-wise, like, and we'll talk about that too, but, you know, I don't know who you give Hosha. I don't know, like, you can see what she does against Maisa Bastos, or not
Bastos
Maisa
is-
Bastos, although she would probably fight at that division. Who did Ffion beat for the title?
It's gonna bother me now.
This is the pre-show stuff that we should actually do instead of screwing around. But
Having a good time. For episode 300 episodes, we still forget the stuff on the pre-show.
slack. It was fun watching. But yeah, Ffion Davies is she's a badass.
Yeah,
And
I love watching. I love watching
I
her.
love
compete.
watching her, especially she's now like gotten over that hump of losing to what's her name, Lady Goat, Bia Mosquita,
Be a mosquito.
who I think is technically like weight wise significantly larger than she is.
I think a weight class up. I believe.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I know under 60 kilos is under 132 pounds for the women.
Yeah, for ADCC weights.
For ADCC. So, you know, and that leaves anything from, you know, whatever weight to 132 pounds. So, like, the only other thing that I could see her doing in the future is not cutting weight and doing above. Oh, wait, what are the new weight classes? Is it 55?
It is 55, 60, and 65. I think it went up 5 kilos. I thought, it's going to kill me. They've moved, and I forget what they are now.
There's another one. She could potentially.
I think it's 55, 60, and 65 now.
Well, let's do for our non-metric folk.
ADCC.
I don't know. Never mind. She can't do. I don't think she's gonna do 55 because that's 121.
Yeah, probably is going to struggle
And
to make
she
that weight.
was struggling to make 25, so I don't think she's gonna lose that extra 4 pounds. I mean, she could, but she's got to maintain it.
Yeah, and then you're already a champion. What's the benefit?
don't-
She was talking about going up to 35. Again, we'll talk about this in the future. Ffion, I think, was looking to stay active on Who's Number One. She's at a good camp. Everything seems to be going great. She's looked phenomenal and continued to look better and better.
Let's see her.
This
at
is just another
Nogi
feather in
Pans
the
and
cap.
Worlds too. I mean,
Yeah.
Pans traditionally Nogi Pans was traditionally in New York. They just had the New York Open a little while ago, so
Yep.
they're opening stuff back up when it comes to that. So maybe it goes back to there, which would be cool.
It's kind of more local to us.
I mean, I could also just look it up and not be a lazy piece of crap. But let's move on for right now.
Let's
and
move on.
I'll
Let's
interrupt
talk about
the
that hot
podcast.
fire that was Dante Leon versus Ethan Crelinsten for the lightweight title. This was as fun as I thought it was going to be. Like we said,
yeah,
this
it
was going to be
super exciting.
a ton of fun. A couple of things. So Dante finishes this with a modified arm in rear naked choke from the back without his hooks fully in, from that overhand head and arm grip off of Crelinsten, inverting under for a knee
head and
bar.
arm choke, but
From the back. Because Dante, as you put on the pre-show, Josh, got that squeeze in him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he squeezed the shit out of him.
Dude.
The Pans are still in Texas.
Okay.
which is cool, but it would be cool to bring it back to New York where it used to be. That'd be
old
awesome.
time's sake. This was fun. A lot of nice little wrestling exchanges. A lot of both.
Crelinsten was like cool with wrestling, but he was also like, I'm totally okay with being on the bottom and playing from like reverse De La Hiva and De La Hiva and inverting off of that. I just think Dante at 55 is scary. And he just...
You could see the strength. There was a strength difference there with Dante at 55 where Dante could power through some of the positions.
Just stayed in the pocket.
Yeah.
I like that he did say I'm going to defend this and then I'm going to go back to 170. I'm like, dude, you're a fucking
monster.
You're a fucking...
I love it.
The guy right there.
So go back again. I'm a huge... So I like to pass in my game like Dante passes here. So I love to watch. This is a great match because you have just the style dynamic for in the beginning 3 minutes of this match was some great wrestling back and forth. You have a really nice wrestle up from Ethan. And I was actually surprised that Ethan was able to hit the wrestle up from the distance because Ethan from the bottom grabs Dante's leg like fully extended and is able to stand up and tack up with the single leg from that extended position. Really, really great wrestle up there, but Ethan
got that
ends up
SpongeBob body.
He do get that SpongeBob.
He's got
body.
a big upper body and he's got really long, like thinner legs. So when he reached, I was like, "Ooh, okay," and he came up with it, and I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I obviously interrupted you when you were in the midst of that, but he's been doing a lot of wrestling.
Yeah, at B Team especially.
I think he was like, maybe not. He decided when he was like, they were moving around a little bit, maybe not to wrestle the whole time with him because it's going to be draining. And I think Dante's the better wrestler.
Yeah, I think I agree. And also, Dante's the bigger guy, probably the better wrestler. Dante, I think Ethan is tricky and has a lot of like really neat stuff, but Dante is usually very diligent with controlling your hips in a way that will shut down a lot of the tricky entries that Crelinsten has. And we saw that. Crelinsten has a great regard back and forth, and Dante would stay on top of his hips.
It's just heavy.
Yeah, what I was talking about in the first, there's a nice little passing sequence where Dante throws a knee cut. The dynamic of the matchup was interesting here because Crelinsten is looking to play from the bottom, play a really heavy knee shield guard, not quite a clamp guard, but just a Z guard knee shield.
He's looking for the inversions.
He's looking to invert under, and so Dante, as the top passer, as a knee cutter, you don't want to typically you have to check one knee down because if you just stand up in front of the guy, they're going to invert. Ethan Crelinsten's going to rip your leg off because that's what he's looking to do. And Dante did a great job of pulling his leg out a couple of times when Crelinsten looked to do that. But watch the way that Dante sits in the pocket of the Z-guard, the way that he hand fights Crelinsten's front foot and top leg coming into the hip, because Crelinsten will play the Z-guard with the foot on the outside, and then he will flare his knee, and he will put his foot on the top side of Dante's hip. And a lot of times this is really problematic for guys because a guy like Ethan will push you away, you'll pull in, and he'll get you going, he'll get some movement going from that. Dante did a great job. He would try to Estima lock that foot. Ethan would pull it out, he would come back into the position, and then he would be really, really diligent with a top upright posture and stance, clearing Ethan's top side Z-shield leg, coming through, looking for the underhook on the arm to pass, and then also looking for the overhook on the head. This is passing sequence that I understand very well and love to see, and it's really awesome to have that reinforced of Dante is one of the best guys in the world. This is how he's passing. This is how he's dealing with this situation. And it was just awesome to watch him cycle through knee cutting, looking for the underhook, looking for the overhook on the head, backing out, checking the far side knee down, checking the inside knee down, and varying between what Ethan was doing for looking for his legs and deciding which leg he was going to check down. And then when he would check both knees down, how he would look to pass. He would never sprawl past. He would try to control Ethan's leg, then he would pop back up to the knee cut to come around and continue to work that sequence. So it was a really, really nice masterclass of just seeing if Dante's not going to body lock pass, which is becoming the meta, he's not going to sprawl pass, he's not going to long step pass. If he's just willing to stay in the knee cut here because he has a dangerous guy like Crelinsten looking to invert, you don't want to do those other passes because it leaves you open for the inversion. This is how to cycle through all of these different passing sequence. And it was really cool because this is passing that I like to do, to see a guy at the top level engage this guard in this way. And I think there's a lot to take away from, like a guy like Kaynan Duarte is so good at varying kind of 3 or 5 different styles of passing in this range. Dante has a lot of variation, but he's keeping it in the one range for the knee cut. And it's really cool to see a guy cycle through all of that in the same passing sequence versus a guy we talk about. Duarte's passing is so good. He changes the ranges. Dante's going to stay in the range. It's cool to see the dynamism of that, kind of the contrast between those two styles when you talk about passing. It was a lot of fun.
It's a good match.
Dante is a monster. This was kind of as fun as we thought it was going to be. The whole card was a lot of fun. There was a couple matches that were a bit slower, which you're always going to have on a card like this, but all 3 title fights were super exciting. The matchmaking is really good. We've seen Dante recently against Barch. He beat Barch in Pittsburgh at 24/7 submission. I forget the event name. 24/7 something was the event name. Who do you want to see Dante against at 55? Because he's beaten a lot of guys, but it's 55 is, there's a lot of, like, a guy like Krikorian is a fun match, a guy like Cisneros is a fun match, Grippo is a fun match, but all those guys are kind of 45ers. I'm trying to think of guys that are going to be on the bigger, heavier side of 55. Dante didn't have a guy specifically named out. He wanted to defend it and then go up again, but I'm curious about, in that roster of 55ers, like top-level 55ers, who would you want to see him against?
Tonin.
Really?
Again, it would be another fun match.
I think Tonin probably has an exclusive contract with one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tonin would still be a good match.
Tonin would be fun.
Who else is at 55?
I'm trying to think of guys on the bigger side of that 55 bracket.
I'm trying to think of somebody that, like, I mean, I don't think. Why not throw Abate at him? Why not throw Tackett at him? Tackett's 70, though.
Oh, Tackett is 70. What about Andrew?
Andrew Tackett would be a sick match, but
might be too much too soon. But Tackett's Andrew Tackett's a black belt now. It's an interesting matchup. I think it'd be another one of those fun Tackett, style matchups. I think Abate's probably at 55 now. Because he was cutting a bunch to make under 66 for ADCC, which is about 45. So I think as a new black belt, that would be an exciting, because he was going to be on AIGA this weekend, but I don't think he's there now. I think he was replaced by the gentleman that you said on the pre-show that I didn't know his name. Crew cut guy.
Yeah, I'm already blanking.
Abate, I think, would be a really fun. He was on Who's Number One. He had a really good match with Damian Anderson. I think Abate would be a really fun match for Leon, honestly.
If he can get down there, Nicky Ryan would be an interesting matchup.
I don't think Nicky Ryan can make 55 anymore. It would be fun, though, actually. Yeah. That's a really fun matchup. That's a matchup I immediately want to see. They've gone against each other, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun. So, Ethan, there's a bunch of guys I think you can put against Ethan. I would love to see the Cisneros match again. We saw it at ADCC. That's a match I want to see again. Ethan, again, continues to look better, and that camp continues to kind of grow. Cisneros has looked phenomenal. I would love to see that match again on Who's Number One.
Gabriel Souza would be a good match for Dante. Or Crelinsten, honestly.
Ooh, that would be fun. Fabricio Andre. Again, we're guys on the smaller side of the realm, looking for guys that are kind of.
Fabricio Andre had to cut for 66.
Yeah, no, you're right.
He's in AIGA's 70 kilos for that one.
Oh, he is a 70-kilogram guy.
Speaking of, no, he would never be able to make the weight.
Who are you thinking of?
I was about to say Mika, but Mika's
85er now.
Too juicy.
Yep. So again, it was a great match. Go watch that. Let's talk about Pena versus Haisam Rita. So Felipe Pena defeats Haisam Rita via submission. Josh, you did call this one. I think we hit the nail on the head for the style matchup on this one, where we knew
that Heisem was going to have to play from a distance, and it was going to be kind of slow when it came to that.
Yep, and we knew that Penna would have an amazing guard, and he really troubled Heisem in a lot of spots. Heisem at one point gets a penalty because he's sort of backing out of the guard. He's like,
He's
you
backing
can
and
tell
circling.
he's trying to figure out how he needs to engage Penna's guard, and eventually Gabriel Martinez, the ref, goes like, hey man, you gotta go for it. I'm gonna give you a penalty. I don't really know what penalties do in who's number one.
I think it has to do with it'll have to do with decision making.
Yeah, it'll factor into the decision making, which I think is fine. And I don't think the penalty was unwarranted. I do think that if you're gonna watch spectated grappling, you're gonna put on a professional event, you have to be you have to be firm with your penalties, because it's not just about who's the better grappler. It's about who is the better grappler that can have a match and have the match push a pace that is viewer friendly. That is
But you also
part of putting on
have
professional matches.
Here's the thing: is Pena would move forward like a tiny scoot, and then Heisem would back out and start to circle and come back in. Pena wasn't really coming forward that much either.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to tell both of them. I can see why they gave it to Heisem, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
I think even though Heisem is older, and I like how saying older, he just turned 30, he's still got a lot of room for growth.
He doesn't have the miles on him.
No, I don't believe
Yeah.
so. So I think he can get some more mileage, but he can go back, he can look at that match, see what he did wrong, talk with Craig, who just had a match with him, and was like,
Yep.
hey, okay, we were talking about doing this, but it didn't work. So
Talk to Nicky Rod, who also had a match with Penna recently. Craig's been in Penna's camps for Gordon, and
yeah, it's a figuring out thing, but I still think Heisem still has a lot of room to grow.
Yeah.
Pena again has
he's a
hit
very
that
known
ceiling.
quantity, and we know what he's going to do. He doesn't
Yes.
really. We talked about this.
He's still really good, and that's
Yeah.
not. But I don't think he's 100% in jiu-jitsu anymore. He was talking about fighting at one point.
I don't know if he still is, but yeah, he mentioned it and had talked about it, and it seemed like a thing that he was entertaining. But again, a lot of those guys of his age, like Buchecha went in,
Yeah.
Yuri's gone in, a bunch of the guys around that era that Penna dominated are moving into MMA because there's great money in it. Yeah.
That's the other thing, though, too. Flo saying that he was 26 years old. That was funny.
Flo gets almost every card, they get someone's age wrong, and it's so funny.
You were like, he is not 26.
I was like, no way in hell. We looked it up. He's in his 30s.
He's like 30 or 31, I think.
Yeah.
Something like
he's
that.
always he's
32.
younger. He's always younger than I think he is, but he's in his 30s now.
That's when they post Nicky Ryan's age, and they're like, he's 24 or however old he is. And it's like, what? And then you realize
we've been watching since he was 13.
Watching him for 13 years at this point.
Yeah. So Penna eventually gets
to the back and rear naked chokes him.
Yeah. Penna has really good hand fighting, and you see him out hand fight Rita very quickly.
The dude has submitted Gordon the same way twice.
Yeah.
He's got a good rear naked choke.
Yep. That's the best way to put it. He's still phenomenal. This is a match that we talked about in the preview. If Penna falls off, it'll be in a match of this, and Penna didn't. He looked like the same guy. Hasn't fallen off. Looks like the same guy he looked in the last 4 or 5 matches. He plays the same game. He's a very known quantity, but that quantity isn't extremely hard for anyone outside of a couple of world-class guys in Nogi to beat. So I think that this will be a good match for Heisem. I think we're going to continue to see Heisem in high-level matches, especially with being with B Team, kind of with B Team's management of getting these matches now that he's here. He's in the U.S. I think we're going to see him rapidly level up, and that's sort of what I hope from him, because that's what we've seen. We've seen him make giant jumps in the past. I think he will continue to do that now he's with a consistent pro camp like B Team with guys like Craig and Nicky Rod and J-Rod, the whole camp there, and everyone speaks really highly of him, so that's good. I don't really know who else you can give Penna who's number one. There's a bunch of matches. I'm interested in every high level. I would honestly love to see Big Dan or Luke Griffith versus Tyson Rita on who's number one. I think both of those would be fun. Put another big man against him that has a lot of like tricky stuff into the leg locks, a new wave guy, puts that rivalry back in kind of everyone's head, which is an interesting enough rivalry. But for Pena, I don't know.
I don't think he goes against Kaynan because, now
they're
they're buddy-buddy.
Do you put him against Meregali in Nogi?
Maybe. I mean, it'd be interesting. I don't think Pena takes that match.
What about a guy like Pedro Mourinho? In Nogi or Gi, honestly, because Mourinho's a gangster. He'll take them both.
I think Mourinho's too small.
Isn't Mourinho like 218? Oh, but Pena, yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
I think he's too small.
I always forget how big Pena is.
I don't know. That one's a little bit harder to speculate for him, like what they're going to do with him. And since he's kind of like wishy-washy when it comes to when he's competing or what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? So we'll see where he comes up. Like, I'll still watch a match, but I don't know if I'll be interested. I was interested because of the Heisem factor.
Yeah.
To see, like,
he's just
where
so
he
explosive.
was. Yeah.
And it gives you a good benchmarking for, like, the development that Rita is going through. And I think what we watch on the show, watching guys' career development, I think is one of the more interesting things that we break down and talk about, because match to match to match, certain guys surprise you, and other guys, especially like Pena, is an extremely known quantity that does not make big changes to game or to tactics match to match. What you got 2 years ago, 4 years ago, is what you're going to get now. Like, look at the Studio 540 match with Gordon in 2016. Looks like a really similar Felipe Pena that you get today in 2023. This 2017 Pena. Like,
for the most part, yes.
That guy, for the most part, looks very similar, and so he's a great benchmark against for guys up and coming like Heisem Rita. So, again, not a whole lot of technique to break down. It's sort of the dynamic of the match is where we thought. It'll be interesting to see what Rita does with this match, and Pena is still an absolute monster and very, very hard to beat. Nicky Ryan defeats Rene Souza via decision. This was 13 minutes of Nicky Ryan on Rene Souza's back. We know Nicky Ryan is very, very good. It's nice to have him back in competition because he's been kind of so injury prone over the last couple of years.
There's not a whole lot to say about it. It was positionally dominant by Nicky.
Yeah.
He pulled guard. I thought he was going to wrestle a little bit longer, but apparently not. He pulled guard, went to the legs, got up on top, passed, took the back.
His passing was super neat. He just literally stepped out of Rene Souza's guard. He went and he just does a little outstep and then immediately steps the other side all the way over to his back in a beautiful back take. Like, it was most of the time when you see someone do that specific step over and then step to the back sequence, it looks forced. They have to jump it and run. It was one of the smoothest teleports to the back I have ever seen anyone hit at this level.
And then he just, again, rode him out, was heavy on the power half from the back.
Yep, which is something that him and his brother both have used for years, and we've seen Nicky Ryan use that a lot.
He uses it a lot. Mm-hmm. He was looking for it, and props to Souza for defending.
Yeah, Nicky Ryan on your back is
whole time.
A monster.
But there's not a whole lot to say about the match. Like,
it was a match that Nicky Ryan going in should have won if he was able to recover from injury. But Nicky Ryan's been to ADCC three separate times.
Yeah.
Won trials. One time got second place prior. He's phenomenal. Rene Souza is very good, but I think this was a match like if Nicky Ryan had not been able to make the recovery from his injuries or the change of weight class, and Rene Souza was able to take this, it would be more indicative of where Nicky Ryan is at. Nicky Ryan looks as good as Nicky Ryan looks when he looks good in competition.
Souza should be happy he didn't get submitted. Like,
yeah, that's a huge feather in your cap.
That's a whole, like, boop. It's like, again, from all the talk, like, Nicky Ryan is a monster in the gym, and it's like, okay, you didn't get submitted. Yeah, you didn't win, but, there's a winner and a loser every time.
That's how combat. It's combat sports. And Nicky Ryan, we talked about it again. I would love to see him versus Dante. I think that's a super interesting match if he can make 55. I I don't
If they have
think,
to do it at 70, great.
yeah,
Do it at 70.
That's a rematch I would love to see at 70. I would love to see Nicky Ryan get one more match versus a guy of high rank, because I think that just with his level of inactivity and competition, we don't see him very frequently. Get him on ramp, get him used
another
to
match
competing, give him another match, and then put him, I think, in the title picture with dominant performances like this. Rene Souza is a little harder to pick. I think you give him a guy from the undercard in the same kind of situation coming off a loss. I would love to see a very similar roster event to event with some names on and off. I think it makes it easier for us to kind of track guys' progression in these divisions. I think I think Ben Eddy is going to be too small.
They're technically the same team.
Oh, right, they are. They're both 10 Planet. I forgot about that.
I mean,
I think
Carlos Henrique.
Troy Russell.
He
could be fun.
I mean, that would be a good match too, but, like you said, giving him somebody off of the preliminary card,
Yeah.
give him Carlos Henrique. Like, he came over a dominant decision over Ben Eddy.
Yep.
It's like, okay, and you lost a unanimous decision to Nicky Ryan. It's like, throw those two together.
Yeah.
And you're building up somebody's name either way.
Yeah.
So
I'm so used. I get so used to the UFC matchmaking where it's like win matches with win, lost matches with loss, and really grappling doesn't have to do that, and doesn't make as much sense a lot of times because the breaks aren't so long. So that was Nicky Ryan versus Rene Souza. Nicky Ryan looks good. Would love to see him have another match. Would love to see him compete 6+ times this year, 6 matches, because again we just don't see him compete at a frequency where we have a good beat on his hot and cold matches. I would love to see it.
From again the B Team YouTube page, he was talking about doing trials,
which I think he's going to need to get back into ADCC. I also think it'll be interesting to see him at Quintet because he's on that Quintet team.
Also
so
true.
That will be the first
and
time
maybe
I think
this
we've
is
seen him in
ramping
Quintet.
up.
Yeah, I hope
to the trials or seeing where it goes from there. So we'll see.
Yeah, I hope he does. It was a dominant performance. Looked very good. Next match, Andrew Tackett defeats Troy Russell via submission. Andrew Tackett is a back-taken monster. Finishes a rear naked choke in under 2 minutes.
He's like, I ain't got time to be out here.
Dude, he just got down. He just took him down, took his back, and then it was a nice hand fight. And then Andrew Tackett went choke time. Rear naked choke, got it in. My notes have no other information other than that was the match. It was an extremely dominant and quick performance from Andrew Tackett. There was a lot of finishes on this card.
Shortest match.
Yeah. That was the beginning of the main card. A great way to begin the main card again with two guys like Troy Russell and Andrew Tackett. They're going to go for the finish quickly. Moving on to the preliminary card, we had Oliver Taza defeating Sebastian Rodriguez via decision. You talked about it a little bit.
I didn't agree with that at all.
Really?
No.
I thought towards the end of it, it was.
I don't think what Taza didn't outweigh what Sebastian Rodriguez did.
Yeah.
I think Sebastian Rodriguez was far more positionally dominant. The submissions that were on there that were thrown by Taza, he did submissions, but it wasn't like Rodriguez didn't look to be in danger in any of them. And anytime he got caught in one, he immediately transitioned out of it and got into a better position because of it. But
I think
I'm not there. I don't know 100% the weight of submission versus position.
This is a good match to understand who's number one's criteria because again, it's not super clear, unfortunately, of they value submission offense and positional dominance and then some other kind of secondary and tertiary criterias.
But, I mean, I could throw 50 subs. That doesn't mean, any of them were close, but does that mean I win?
Yeah,
because I did so many of them. But the other guy, positionally, had better position.
Right. And so that's why these matches are kind of frustrating because we don't have super clear and concrete understandings of exactly what who's number one is looking for. So per my understanding of who's number one, it's Taza takes that in the last two periods. He's sort of more dominant slightly, and he sort of pulls away. But you saw it differently because, again, we're looking at different criteria because we don't have a full kind of grasp of the criteria that who's number one is using. It kind of highlights some of the issues that I wish Who's Number One would do better. Like, ONE FC does a great job. They run a bunch of different types of matches and fights throughout a card. They do a good job of explaining during the matches and in the transitions exactly what the criteria is, or the format of the match or the fight or whatever is going on. I think Who's Number One could do a better job of informing the audience, like especially guys like us that watch every single card every single weekend, exactly what we're looking for, so that when it goes to a close decision like this, I can point more to, like, oh, I understand in the criteria, in the rule set, why Taza won here and, why Sebastian didn't. Or, oh, I don't think that was the right decision with my understanding of the rule set. And so a match like this highlights one of those issues where it's like, you and I saw the same match. I kind of agree with the decision. You have an issue with the decision. There's a hang up there for what our criteria is we're looking for, because we're both pretty experienced in watching pro matches.
What would, going off of ADCC criteria, because you've judged those
A bunch.
You would have still given it to Taza over that time frame?
Maybe not. Because Sebastian Rodriguez is the guy, he initiated a bunch of different sequences, and it's like in ADCC, it's the initiation and then the strength of the counter. So if I, in ADCC, if I'm initiating a position, even if I'm getting fucked in that position and like rolled through and almost getting my back taken, if I am the person that made the initial movements in trying to pass and was countered, I still get credit for that sequence, because that sequence would not have happened without my initiation, without me taking the risk. So the other guy doesn't get a lot of credit for being able to counter. Like, ADCC is not a counter fighters organization at all. Like, a counter fighter will lose in ADCC and should lose. Like, look at the Cyborg versus Nicky Rod match. For ADCC and for criteria, Nicky Rod is the guy initiating those sequences, even though Cyborg has better counters, because Nicky Rod is the initiator of those sequences. He is the person that they are scored for. And so that's really hard. And whenever I've done and been a head judge for ADCC and needed to train the referees or the secondary judges at the events I've done, the first hour of the day is hammering home really, hey, you are looking for initiation. This is the criteria, because most of the time in jiu-jitsu, when you're watching and scoring a match, you're scoring the entire sequence as one. Okay, who got the better of that sequence? It scores to that person. In ADCC scoring, it is who is the initiator of that sequence, and almost at best, the guy countering can be even in that sequence. Like, hey man, if I go to pass and you throw up a really tight armbar and I get out of it and pull through, like, okay, that's probably a pretty close to even sequence. But because I initiated it, it's almost always going to go to the guy forcing and creating the action. Does Who's Number One do that? I don't know, because it's not clear in the broadcast that we're seeing exactly what their criteria is for matches like this. My understanding is, and what we heard on the broadcast, submission attempts, positional dominance, and we understand submission attempts to mean a submission attempt that requires defense. Legitimate submission attempt that requires defense, which Rodriguez was defending positionally, but it's one of those tough matches to score.
Interesting.
Anything else you got?
Nope. I mean, you clarified it. I just wanted to see like where it was coming from, and I was like, maybe you were thinking about it from that standard or not, which you obviously were not thinking it from the ADCC standard, because it isn't that.
Right.
But, since you had been doing that, I wanted to get your insight on that.
Yeah.
So
it was close. Taza takes it. Late replacement replaces Hunter Colvin. Props to him, again, taking a late replacement match and winning it. I would love to see both these guys back on Who's Number One. Sebastian Rodriguez is a guy that is at a Unity, who we've been kind of hot on for a little bit. He's been really good. I was the judge on a bunch of his matches at the World Open at the ADCC Worlds, because they didn't open there, and I was really, really impressed with everything he showed up for his division, and then in the Pro Absolute, super, super impressed with him. I would love to see him. I would love to see more of him, because I think he is really underrated by a lot of guys, and people don't realize. Again, I forgot. Didn't recognize his name last week when we were doing the show, and like I think he can be on that level, because he has a lot of really, really tricky stuff, and he's the guy that a lot of the Unity guys that I've talked to have been like, yeah, that's the dude. That dude's gonna be a guy on that level really soon. So excited for that. Anything else in that match, Josh?
Nope.
Carlos Henrique defeats Benetti via decision, unanimous decision.
We don't have to talk about that match.
It was probably one of the slower. It was probably the slowest match on the card.
It drug that card, even though it was the prelim card, down. Benetti didn't have anything for him.
Yeah, Carlos Henrique sort of was
he
just
was like,
dominating.
I'm going to try to throw this. It didn't work. Cool. That's it.
I wish both guys would have pushed the activity a little more and been a little more aggressive on this stage. I can't really fault it. Again, it's both guys played their game. We know Benetti has a really dangerous guard. Carlos Henrique did a very good job of avoiding being in the guard and passing. And that's, you don't want to sit in a guy like Benetti's guard and kind of muck around. You want to really bop through it. And then he would do that, and then Benetti would establish the guard again. Henrique would pull out. I can't fault either guy for it. I just would have loved to see a little more.
It wasn't exciting.
Yeah, a little more activity from both guys. Fun match. Helena Cravar defeats Healy Dayan via submission heel hook. 1 minute, 11 seconds. Super neat entry. We know that Cravar has great heel hooks. She shows it off again here. Inverts onto the bottom. Pops the heel out. Locks the hands, bellies down, Healy taps. It was 2 sequences in total was the entire match.
It was 71 seconds long.
Yep. Cravar looks good. Again, I would love to see them continue to build Cravar up. I think we're going to see more from Healy. She's out of B team. She's in those rooms.
She's out of Absolute.
Oh, wait, she's out of Absolute at B team right now.
Yeah, She filled in for somebody that was supposed to go against Cravar, who was from B team, but had to drop out due to injury.
Yes.
But it's like, okay, well, we need to start getting, again, build her up slowly, but get her tougher opponents as it starts to ramp up.
And Cravar looks good. Again, we've seen this type of match. We've seen this from Cravar before. If you go back and look at the history of Cravar's matches, I've watched a lot of her matches over the last 2 years. This is a sequence we've seen her hit before. We've seen her hit it this exact sequence on Submission Hunter Pro, I think. When she was on that, when she headlined that 2 years ago, this is the exact same sequence that she hit there. The camera angle for that is really hard to find, but it is this exact sequence. That's what she hits. She's hit this for years now. I'm trying to think of who would be a really good benchmarking match at 45, but she's in this really weird transitional period for that weight class for where she is in her career, where it's like, I need to give you ranked black belts that are ranked 15 to 20. And I'm not as familiar with that division.
Carolina?
Anna Carolina would be, I think, a bit too much too soon.
Or not, we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, she's kind of not a known quantity. I think we saw her match against Clay at Trials, and that's the only match I can think of. But I think Clay, again, we're talking about Clay versus beating Ffion. I think Clay, I'm not interested for that match for another year or two to see that rematch.
I don't know who you put against her. I'm interested to see who they use.
Yeah.
And interested to see if she overcomes that next obstacle.
I think that they will continue. I hope that they continue to kind of build her career as they have been. They're moving and they're talking about, and the New Wave guys are talking about ramping her up in competition, and they know how to build prospects, and they're very diligent about that, which is one of the things I really appreciate about that camp. Sometimes it's a bit slower than I like, but I think that they have a pathway for her becoming to New Wave, and she looks good here. So moving on to the opener of the night, Achilles Rocha defeats JB Betchloff via submission, a toe hold. Achilles gets it done. I don't have a ton of.
They were attacking the legs, both of them. Achilles just got to it quicker.
Yeah.
Apparently, JB trains a lot with Craig.
Yep.
But Achilles looked good.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I was actually impressed with Achilles. I love that
he went on the attack a lot.
This was a great, from a matchmaking perspective, from a card construction perspective, this is a great match to start with. Achilles and Cravar opening your card to younger grapplers that are absolutely looking to put a stamp on something, that are going to be super submission hungry, versus good competition, but competition that it's a make your career match for the folks that they are fighting, and it's a really good step in competition for these opening matches. I think it's a really fun way to you open your card with great prospects that are known quantities versus people getting an opportunity to go against them that are close to that level. And Achilles and Cravar both did a great job. The first
That's a great way to
10
open
minutes
it.
we had done 2 matches. Between the walkouts and the interviews and everything else, the first 10 minutes of the card, we were boom, boom, boom. And we had some people coming over that hadn't even made it to my house yet to watch the card. And Josh and I went, they may not get here in time with how this card's going.
30%, only 30% of the matches went to decision.
Yeah, which is, I think, a low...
or no, incorrect. 40%. I missed the one.
Still, 50% of a card, more than 50% of a card going to submission is pretty unheard of for cards like this.
It's great. Like, we, when we were still a younger podcast, before we'd start the show, we would do the math on, like, fight to wins and figure out the submission percentage.
Yep.
And,
30%.
because this is
35% is a good submission percentage.
This is great because it's only 10 matches long, and you're like, okay, well, 4 of them went to decision. That's easy. 60% went to submission.
Yeah.
It's a good submission rate.
And they were quick, and they were good, and there was a great showcase of talent. I think who's number one continues to put on good cards.
Went longer, but still got the subs, were still exciting.
Yes.
Dante Leon's match almost went 10 minutes. Still exciting. Felipe Pena, Hasim Rita. Still exciting.
10 minutes almost.
10 minutes almost. Tackett's like, I'm going to throw this off, and did it in less than 2. Cravar did it in barely over a minute. Achilles Rocha did it in about 5. So it's like there was a variety, which shows like they're doing pretty good on matchmaking.
Yeah.
Could it be a little bit better? I mean, always. You always strive to get better. But these matches were fire. Like, this wasn't... There were very few matches where I'd be like, okay, well, I'm not going to turn this back on and watch the next one because of this card.
Yeah, we didn't get bored and start losing in other conversations the entire evening, which isn't the case for even all the cards we watched together. So props to them, man. I love what they're doing with Who's Number One. I love that they are getting consistent folks on. They have
think it
belts.
needs to happen more.
Yeah, it needs to be a monthly event. It needs to be a monthly event or 6 weeks at most.
Yes, I was about to say about 6 weeks. Every 6 weeks or so, you get things rolling. You get a lot of stuff coming. Because here's the other thing, and it doesn't really have to do with the Who's Number One cards, and it has to do with Flow. Flow has had a huge drop.
Yeah.
In
quality and content. And like there are no articles. There's all of their
like
events.
Rehashing of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just...
It looks
they need
like
to pump
Flow
out
from
more.
2017.
They just need to pump out more stuff, whether it's finding more things, whatever. There needs to be more. I thought it was cool that they did build-up videos towards this.
That's great.
You built content towards that. You need to do that for everything. Start building up content. Start hyping these things. Don't, go silent for a week and then, okay, here's this thing, and then we go to this.
Yeah.
It's like... I appreciate not being interrupted by Little Caesars Pizza ads.
Yep, or Dodge Ram ads.
Or Dodge Ram ads.
Pick and choose your next ad.
But you need to also change some of the ads that you are showing. Like, okay, Tezo sponsored it. We're going to show Tezo stuff. Cool. I don't need to see that every single break in between matches. And I don't need to see the same 3 like little ad reads. Like,
yeah, I would love more variety. Take a page out of what esports does, which is again a very similar size to jiu-jitsu. For some of the smaller niche esports events, like look at how they are structuring their broadcasts and remaining profitable and working within their communities.
Look at larger
Take a page out of
things
that.
and scale it. Like look at UFC, for instance. Their ad stuff is also atrocious. I hate it.
Yeah,
because they're just like
it's plastered on everything.
They're on the corporate teat. But they're also telling you this is what's coming up. These are matches that are coming up. Here are upcoming cards. You don't hear that as much. They did talk a little bit about another Who's Number One coming up, but it wasn't. If that was pounded into my
in
head,
your face for this matchup
during this whole thing
with a promo that plays at this card and like help like go
I would
event
remember
to
more.
event.
I know they talked to JT. JT might be on it.
Yeah,
but
we just want to see more.
Make it
from
worth
this
the money
platform.
that I'm spending.
Yeah, it's $150 a year, which is I think one of them. I think it is the most expensive subscription that I keep. Fight is $50 because I have the old price. Fucking Netflix isn't $150 a year now.
But that's
Close. It's close, but it's
it depends
Netflix.
it depends on your
tier.
Your tier, but like what I
Prime
pay is
is
like $16 a month. Prime is $150 some odd dollars.
But it's also 2-day shipping. It's
you're
also
you're
something
getting a
else.
lot of stuff
Yeah.
out of that.
Fight Pass is $98, I think, a year, and then the pay-per-views we do are 20 are
It
5 to
varies,
$20,
5 to 30, whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
and we do those once a month now and again, and that's we pick and choose on those, but
so hype up everything like BJJ
it's
Stars.
$150
BJJ Stars is
a
coming up.
month, a year. Yeah,
Start putting out some stuff on it. More articles, more videos, more things. Like
It's on the
okay,
platform.
These are
I would love to
these are these
see-
matches that have already happened.
yeah. I would love to see advertisements for other Flow cards happening during these big events.
I don't-
in the whole ecosystem.
I don't care about Fat Tire.
Yeah, I would love to. I would just love to see the
Like I
the
get
product look
I
more professional.
get that you sponsor it, but I don't want to see it every 15 minutes, right?
Yeah. So
And that's the same thing with
Yep.
with larger stuff. UFC Modelo Especial. It's
yeah,
like
Brian
okay,
Ortega
but,
made a choice.
you know,
So that's what I got for who's number one. I think it's doing a great job. I just would love to see them
more.
I would love to see more on these big cards because this was a great card. We talked about it for over an hour, and I could easily talk about this for another hour. Just talk about the card, the matchups. Like it was a really good
Do another
card.
Who's Next.
Yeah.
Take the good parts of Who's Next.
Yep, learn from
trim
it,
some
do
of
it
the
again.
the not so good parts from Who's Next, and make the product better. And keep doing that. Keep building up grapplers.
Yeah.
Maybe
Build your prospects. Another Daisy Fresh type series. People really latched onto that. Like, it wasn't necessarily my favorite kind of content series, but
They still got
everyone
stuff that they're
else
releasing. They got a
loved
few
it.
more
And they
episodes.
built a bunch of guys from the Pedigo team, and those guys are known quantities now that we're look
Look at Couch.
Couch shows up on a card. I'm like, I am for sure watching Jacob Couch because he's exciting. I know him from Daisy Fresh. I've interviewed him. That's kind of a personal thing for me, but like I like watching him, and they've built him up. Flow has built him up. Continue to do that with other grapplers to build these storylines for me, and I will tune in, and I will try to have other folks tune. I'll have folks over at the house to show and do these cards. That's how you do it. I think they're doing some of that really well, but
they can
the
do
big
more
breaks
things.
between the cards with radio silence
And
is
nothing, and
really
just
hard.
rehash
Even
articles
the
and just
website.
like,
Give me something during.
oh God,
during
I don't
the
know how you
down
make a
weeks.
search function worse, but they sure did.
Yeah. So that's our Flow rant. Again, doing a lot of things great. I think that they have continued to get better with the matchmaking, and this card went, I think, time-wise, the best yet. There wasn't.
Yes, but don't fucking stop doing it on Thursday.
Started at 6.
Stop
Started
doing it
at
a
6.
random day during the week. Don't continuously post that it's going to be the card, the main card.
Yeah.
Unless like I went
Yeah.
insane and complete. They were like the main
No.
card starts at
8, and it was the
PM
preliminary
Eastern.
card starting at 8.
Like it didn't.
Yeah.
So it went till
Yeah.
past 11 o'clock
On a Thursday.
on a Thursday night.
Yeah, East Coast. It's rough. I get
For
it.
us. Like I get it West Coast, that didn't matter. It started at 6 p.m. People are like, great, it's right after work or whatever.
Right.
But that's brutal for East Coast.
It's rough. Yeah.
It's 11, sometimes 12 o'clock, and thank
On
goodness
a Thursday.
not every single one went to a decision or anything like that.
Oh yeah, that card went 1 a.m. again. But you got to plan for your cards to go that late. So I don't have much more on who's number one. I don't want to keep just beating this dead horse.
No, it was good. They
Yeah, it was
have
awesome.
stuff to work on across the board in general, but like here's the other thing too, which kind of surprised me is a lot of these matches were on YouTube from Flow.
Yeah, that was
The next,
weird.
like,
I
day.
saw that. Like Nicky Ryan's match, Duarte's match is up there. I think there's another match up there. Like immediately, that's weird.
Today's the 14th. The
Main event.
main event was up 3 days ago.
Yeah, it was up the next day.
Friday.
It
They were
was
like,
up the day
there's
after.
a submission. It's like, first of all, spoilers.
Yeah,
Some
Flo's really
people
mad about that.
maybe didn't watch it. Some people are going to find a rip of it eventually somewhere. And that might be what they were doing where they were getting ahead of it.
To get their ad revenue and content on YouTube. I understand
Right.
that.
But
it was weird. This is the first time that they've done that, and I'm concerned why they did that. That's interesting.
like, look at this right here, up at the top, right? Summit Grappling's 12 and 13, apparently back to back.
Yeah, August 18th and 19th.
AIGA 19th and 20th.
And ADCC Canada.
Canadian Open 19th, right? Okay, so go to the homepage.
Okay, yeah.
They're talking about who's number one. It's the interviews from that, and
there hasn't been an update to the front page of the website in. They updated stuff 2 hours ago, 2 videos, and then 1 day ago.
Go down a little bit further. What's the next thing? I know we're
a Henzo thing from 3 days ago.
Meregali,
3 days ago, 3 days ago.
all of this.
3 days ago.
Tezos.
Yeah.
If you only have like, here's the thing that we're doing, and that's the content that you're releasing, and you're not like, well, okay, here's all of these things. Here are breakdowns. Oh, it's 15 days out. Why are we talking about it so soon? It's like, give me something. Like right now, we're in an age where information is easy to come by.
Right.
Be the guys that release it then.
Yeah, give me a reason to open up Flow on a daily basis to see what they're on, see what's on the main page. I open up Flow to the schedule because there is not a whole lot of reason to go to the main page for stuff I haven't seen. There's no breaking news on Flow. Like I go to jitsmagazine.com because they have. I went for the news segment for this episode. I went to that because I found. For EUG, for BJJ Stars, for like because I actually
can find that stuff on Reddit.
There are
quicker.
articles. Flow doesn't have any of that, and so there's no reason for me to go to the Flow main page because it's older content that they're putting up there, and there's no. If you're going to be the broadcast partner for these, I would love you to be that partner and give that information out. So I'm not like let's move on to
The outro?
No, to AIGA.
Oh, we're previewing?
We're previewing AIGA.
Sort of.
On Flow, we can't find matchups. We can't find full teams. We can't find really any event information other than the days that it is broadcasting. There are phenomenal teams. There are B-team guys, a bunch of B-team guys there, a bunch of ADCC World Champions, ADCC World Medalists on Team Modolfo. We have had to search the internet to try to find who's on the team and everything else because their broadcast partner, Flow, has none of that up. And I'm going to the place I'm going to watch it that is a news site, that is a news aggregator, that blocks us from, as independent media, from doing anything at their broadcast events and has done that for years. And I've worked with promoters and have had to work behind the scenes a ton to even get media access to a bunch of Flow events because I do previews and we do this sort of stuff. It's not on the broadcast website. I can't find information about this event that's coming up.
And you're doing okay. So now we're also working with a foreign company
in Kazakhstan. With a lot of the stuff isn't in English, which is understandable. They're putting an event on in Kazakhstan.
Okay, great. You're working with Flow. Immediately, here's the teams. They can adjust it as need be.
Yeah.
That's where I would. Okay. Oh, hey, they released this. So here is the team. Done. All right, cool. Now I know all of these things.
Yeah, it's just so hard to cover stuff on Flow because Flow puts out so little information other than just the video day of for events. I need them to do more because it makes it incredibly hard. Team Modolfo, we have Taliesin Soares, we have Zach Kino, we have Gabriel Souza, we have Fabricio Andre, we have Cole Abate up at 76 kilograms. Is Cole Abate. Dante Leon. We have... Dante... I think Cole is not in here. I think...
Well, it says Cole is there at under 76, and then Dante is at 76, just like Isaac is under 83, under 91, plus 91, plus 91.
Isaac Michelle, Giancarlo Bodoni, Luke Griffith is plus 91, and John Hansen is plus 91 kilos. That's Team Modolfo. We also have 3 other teams. We have Team Universal Fighters. We have
Click on it. They have their names in there. That's the one that
Josh,
I read it from.
I cannot do these. So you give me the names, Josh.
Ahmed Zar, Malgazar Amir, and these might be first name. It might be last name, first name. But,
yeah.
Ibrahimov Garabek, Katmazov Rashid. I'm going to go and say it's Razan Rizvanov.
Okay.
I don't know. Adilov, and mind you, when I was reading off these names, Maine was like, "You're making this up," and I was like, I'm
They are
not.
very Kazakh names from the Caucasus that I will not be able to do next week. But we got
Adilov,
Josh here today.
Abdulali, Abdulev Gadzimurad, Abdulev Ruslan, and Roman Lukashevich. There we go. That was at the bottom. That was from under 60 all the way to plus 91.
I don't think and these are they have individual names. We have Joseph Chen as well on the other
That
team.
is either up or down a little bit more. Oh, right down there. Right. Keep going. The yellow picture right there.
This has those guys?
Yes.
So here is Team A Leon.
What you should do is just flip through the pictures
Okay.
because they list a bunch of the accomplishments for everybody.
Gary Tang.
At under 66. Daiki Yonikora at under 65. Shu Huai Ching or King.
I think.
I'm not very good with the QING.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is Chinese name.
Chinese or Mongolian names.
Something like that.
Kenta Iwamoto.
Kenta Iwamoto.
I got that name.
Joseph Chen at under 83. Kamal Akagunduz. I butchered that. I apologize. That's under 91. And Daniel Schwart at plus 91.
Yeah. So those are 3 of the 4 teams.
Let's see if the team Khabib is on there. Like
I couldn't find it.
go up a little bit to the picture of Khabib, and maybe it's on.
It's not.
Okay.
So now you get
Wait,
this.
who's the other guy? Let me see that name.
That's Dante Leon.
This is questions for the athletes.
So again, we have 3 of the 4 teams. It looks like in the first round that we are going to get Team Nurmagomedov versus Team Universal Fighters and Team A Leon versus Team Moldolfo. And Dante Leon has talked about going against Kenta Iwamoto.
Wait.
Yes.
Look at how the arrows are in that bracket. I think it's
Everyone goes
Universal
against
Fighter
everyone.
versus Al Leon, and says it's part 2, so it might be 2 days of this.
Yeah, there's 2 days of it. I think every team goes against every team,
But
but
they're just
Dante
doing it-
has specifically talked about Kenta being a tough matchup. I'm excited for that matchup, but that's the only matchup that we know about right now. We can pick and choose the divisions, but we're really just going to cover the whole thing.
See, look, somebody just posted it, and it was from 7 weeks ago. Where can we see the composition of each team?
With
It will be released
on
here
Instagram.
on IG soon.
So this is coming up. It should be a lot of fun. This is going to be next week's show in its entirety. But yeah, I got nothing else, Josh. This is 300 episodes of the Grappling Rewind. 300 numbered episodes. I think we're up to almost close to 315 or something like that now, with the half episodes, the live show episodes, the day 2, day 1 coverage episodes for ADCCs or for other major events. It's been a ride the past 6 years, 2017, when we started doing the show. Haven't missed a show
In
since.
the summer of 2017. So right around now, 6
Yeah.
years ago exactly.
Yeah, we started in November, I think.
Oh, yeah, fall.
Yep. So, yeah, it's been a great ride. I'm loving doing the show. It's been phenomenal to watch the sport change, and I'm looking forward to more years of doing the show and watching grappling, and watching what the next kind of generation and wave of athletes coming in continues to do. I'm really curious to see how ADCC and all the ADCC Opens change grappling as a whole and the sport as a whole. We are coming up against trials, ADCC trials for the East Coast trials, which will be the first trials in October here in a couple of months, with everyone and all those top guys getting all the ADCC experience at the Opens. I think this will be a trials unlike we have ever seen before.
It'll be like
Hands down.
last trials, but better.
I think it will make the last trials look uncompetitive. We have
They
so
capped
many
it.
guys.
They're capping it though, right?
They have to. There's a discussion about it being longer. There's more details coming out from the
Like, what are you
Opens.
gonna have, like a 500-person bracket?
Potentially be a 3-day. It may one day have to be 3 days.
I think
Wrestling
with
tournaments do it.
Yeah, but
It'll be interesting to see, but I love as the sport expands that there is still a pathway for you as a no-name grappler, if you think you have the skills, to make it to the World Championships.
I think having to like kind of like IBJJF did when they started doing points for
Yeah.
getting into Worlds. They might be using the opens to be like, you need X amount of points to qualify to even do it.
To do trials.
If it starts to get out of hand.
Which it's going. I think this year will be the year it gets out of hand.
I swear I heard something about them capping it at like 256.
Well, usually they capped him last time at 256. Or 200. Yeah, they capped it at 256 last time. They had to cap 70 and 66 for West Coast.
Because the next number after 256 is 512.
512 for a bracket.
If you had a bracket with 512 people.
Bracket with 400 people. Like, for one slot. That's the craziest.
One slot from each trial.
From each weight class, yeah.
Can you imagine having two 512-man brackets on the East and West Coast? Like, some people are going to do, like...
I think it's really funny that these trials are getting so big, and people don't really talk about it very often, but when you win a trials, because trials happen in the North America and all around the regions, 1 year, and then the following trial will happen the next year, you are the North American champion for that year for ADCC. Like, that's the trials is actually a U.S. championship for that year. That may be one of the hardest tournaments to win just by sheer numbers.
Sheer numbers, yes, but like you're going to get, let's use 256, you're going to get
7 or 8 matches.
224 people that shouldn't be it there. You might have 32 people that legitimately should be there.
That have a shot.
Those other people are kind of just cluttering the way. And that's not downplaying anybody that's done it.
No. We've seen plenty of people, do trials a couple years in a row, and that third trials, because, again, they're getting experience for later in their... Well, I mean, he got second over and over and over again.
But it's like, again, he's in these giant brackets now at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I could use like not 15 matches to get to the finals. That'd be awesome.
So I think it will be interesting to watch the sport develop, and I am extremely excited for the next year of Grappling Rewind. We have some fun stuff. The sport is only getting better and better.
Don't block us from being able to cover it. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be great. I would really love that. I bought a bunch of camera gear, and I would really love
bunch is an understatement.
I would really love to be able to
You're gonna
go
need
to
about
events.
6 more of those cases over there.
Yeah, I've already talked to Rachel and looked at buying. I bought 13 cameras last week, and all of them work, and it's a fun endeavor, but not for Grappling Rewind, for other camera projects that I have.
For other weird things that Maine does.
But yeah, no, I love, again, just please let us come to your events. We will come. I always pay our own way for stuff. I just want to talk to and interview and showcase the athletes that are putting on the performances and out there competing, because that's the point of the show. That's the point of Grappling Rewind as an organization, is I want to highlight and showcase and talk about grapplers, especially up-and-coming grapplers that are getting to the level of elite and the world titles and the world championship level to have these matches. I want to get a chance to help have them tell their stories and be able to talk to them and give them the exposure that they deserve as the top grapplers and the up-and-coming prospects in the sport, because they are all part of this big community that I don't think has enough showcase for the professional side. I just want to go and help them tell their stories.
Help us help you.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's been the goal of the Grappling Rewind since 2017.
As long as
300 shows of doing that.
As long as I'm not on the show, they will talk very positively about things. They will gently talk about the negatives, as opposed to me just being like, yeah, it fucking sucks.
But again, that economy.
But then everybody's like, oh, it's just a grumpy fat bald guy.
Yeah. But it's been a great run so far. I'm looking forward to what comes from here.
Said this plenty of times, and I'll say it again. Hey Flo, if you don't want to do the work, we'll do it for you. Just pay us.
I mean, let me know. We have an email, and I'm more than happy to talk. As always on the show, I'm your host Maine, my co-host
Josh.
We are the Grappling Rewind. It's the Matt. Whatever it is, stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
Let us know.
reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.